Welcome to the What About This Idea show,
Hello, everyone, and welcome.
inside the hearts and minds of entrepreneurs.
Oh, you did it so well.
I know, right?
It's
only
like
taken me a
24th
full
episode
year.
or something like that. You finally got it.
I mean, what did I used to say? You guys will have to go back on the original
The earliest-
shows. Yeah, on
earliest
the early
episodes.
ones when I couldn't remember what the name of our own show was. Oh, how we've grown over the last
jumping
year.
in, isn't it? Yeah.
I remember that though, because you were the one that inspired me, because I was very worried about what I would do on this podcast, right? Like, should I write a script or should I whatever? Hold on. I don't think I should just sit down. You're like, just sit down and start talking.
Oh, yeah.
That's what you said.
And look at you. You haven't shut up. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't want to get
That's
myself in
funny.
trouble right off the bat.
Right off the. I see the tone. I see the tone.
I don't often,
maybe
I don't often use the word shut up. And when you have kids, you know, you're like,
Don't say
shut
that.
up. Yeah. But it was appropriate there in the
Yeah,
moment.
I get it.
Joke.
Right. It was a different context. It wasn't like you were telling me to shut up.
No.
I mean, maybe passive aggressively.
Yeah,
You were
okay.
telling me to shut
Who
up.
knows? Who knows?
We have a guest here today, so
Oh, we do.
maybe they can intervene in.
Should we do that?
In ours.
Should we
Yes.
introduce our guest?
It is James Matheson. Thank
Hello.
you for joining
Hi,
us.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. It's kind of a gloomy day, but I think that makes for good lighting.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
I don't know.
I
Maybe.
think we look stoic.
We do.
Yeah.
Thank you. I feel stoic.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever thought of myself as looking stoic. You know.
I have,
Being.
because when I'm grumpy, I can't hide that from my face.
Yeah. I'm
I was waiting.
Shut it
I
up.
gave you an opening.
nope.
Gave you an opening.
I'm
You
not
didn't
saying
take
a word.
it.
So James is someone that you invited in.
I
Correct?
did invite James.
So this is
in.
classic, where like I have really, literally no idea who you are, other than James Matheson. It's been on the calendar.
But what you do know about him is he walked in here after a trip from Portugal and
yeah.
plopped a port and a bottle of wine down, which
right.
we will have to taste on the second half.
Right, in the second half.
That's what you. That's all you really know
That's
about.
all I really know.
That's our incentive to keep forward momentum.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, we have goals.
I do. I mean, if we get there, I do have a story about port.
Great.
Okay, we're gonna
forward
get
to
there.
Yeah,
What do
I
you
mean, I don't know if we
we
should
get there.
launch into it right away. You know, I think we should maybe
We should probably
get
save
to
it.
know James first.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you go ahead and ask him a completely naive question?
So what are you doing here? Why are you in my studio?
I was invited to be here.
Oh, well, there you go.
I got some tea. I figured I could pay my way by bringing
Okay.
support.
Well, now we have to figure out why. Right?
Yeah,
I think we should make it clear to people who are watching, if you bring port, we will put you on the show.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, it
mean,
just-
you're on the show if you bring port.
Yeah. So wine is good, but port especially,
Yeah, it
like
really
that's.
gets us.
Right.
Yep.
Yep.
It's like candy.
So this is a show about entrepreneurship. That's our kind of our main focus, and explaining to people like what it's like to be an entrepreneur and why do people do this crazy stuff. And so you're here, presumably. Presumably, you're an entrepreneur.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Good job.
All right.
Way to
see,
go. You did
Sam,
it.
the deductive skills are
Yeah.
pretty impressive.
Well, I actually
Yeah.
it was just that I trusted you as my.
Oh, I would
partner.
refrain from doing that all the time.
Right.
Who knows when I'm gonna have to sit down here?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But no, James was picked because he's an entrepreneur. What?
Right.
Tell us what you do.
Yeah, so I am the co-founder of a company called Network Medics, which was an IT service provider here in Minneapolis, that I co-founded with a couple of friends of mine in 2008.
Okay.
And it was after I had gotten laid off 2 times in 10 months.
From doing what?
Other random unrelated things. So
Okay.
I was working at the Humphrey Institute at the University of Minnesota as the assistant director of development, which is a major gifts officer. Go get big checks from donors. And after a year of that, I was let go. And from there, I went to work for a small startup called ThinkHouse Group, which was a really cool idea. And this was 2007, and we had come up with, really the owners of this company had come up with a platform for construction companies to take care of all the back end work that need to be done. So their change orders, their billing, their payroll, all those kinds of things.
Like, oh, really? Construction
really.
companies, yeah.
Yeah.
What, like proprietary to each company? Is it like a software available? Like, was it white labeled or?
It was white labeled software.
Yeah.
So we had found a document management software. And so this is 2007. So we were hosting business documents online. They would submit their documents and would be able to do their work during the week. But then our team would be doing all of the bookkeeping and back end stuff. And we had come up with this system by which the entrepreneur would just have to spend Friday morning, get up at 8 a.m. Go through a checklist of all the things you have to do. Courier shows up, brings you a packet, takes your packet, and exchanges. And so it was this sort of...
Oh, really? So there's a physical component
Yeah.
to it,
So
too.
Yeah. This is back in 2007.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it was really innovative back in 2007.
Yeah.
Everybody thought the idea was great. It was like a really, really fantastic service for this industry. And it's a very physical industry. They do a lot of work still to this day on
What size
paper.
companies, just out of curiosity? Because I was in construction.
Yeah, smaller, mostly subcontractors, remodelers, some smaller general contractors, probably in revenues less than 10 million. So on the small side.
Yeah. Wow.
But it was great, but this was also 2007 going into 2008. So you got this economic
I was going to say
uncertainty going
there
on.
was some kind of a meltdown
Yeah, I
during
remember
that
that.
time.
Yeah, it was
I
bad.
kind of remember. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think, it was also a point where I learned a very important lesson from these entrepreneurs who, they didn't stay focused on this service. They had other businesses they were working on. And so we got this one to the point where it was just about to cash flow.
Yep.
And there was shiny object syndrome, and their attention went other places. And so when the economy kind of started to decline and fall apart and bottom out,
Collapse.
sales ceased. We weren't able to bring in new accounts, and so we're sitting there with not quite enough revenue to support the entire team. And unfortunately, they had to let the team go. And they continued the contracts and did the work themselves. But it was only another year or so before that company they shuttered the doors because they just weren't able to sustain it in that environment.
But what a cool idea, honestly, back in the day.
Fantastic idea.
Yeah.
And so I found myself sitting there and thinking, okay, well now I've been working for other people this whole time, and now I've been laid off 2 times in 10 months. Like enough.
That'll do
Stability,
it. Yeah, that'll do it.
Be mine.
And so it just so happened that a friend of mine from college had his own web design business, and he'd been talking to a couple of other sort of techie type guys of like we should be doing our own business. And then another friend, this was basically the guys that were around the poker table. We had like a weekly poker game.
Yeah.
We kind of put our heads together, and so we had.
This is a great time to plan your future around poker, and whiskey and cigars.
And also just take their money when I don't have a salary. So
That's right.
good.
That's right.
But
are we playing pennies today?
We play for larger amounts.
So we had we had Kevin who was kind of the web sales marketing guru. We had Patrick, who's the technical genius, and we had me, who's kind of the operations business management guy, who had just participated in a startup, got it off the ground and running, and said we have a great team here because we have all these different roles and skill sets that are covered in different areas. And Patrick is a networking IT genius. Let's just take his expertise and we'll build a company around it. Yep. So we got together. I remember we got in a conference room. We catered McDonald's Big Macs for our
big spenders.
our launch meeting.
Yeah, fancy.
Kind of talk through it, what we would need to do, and on the drive back home, Kevin fired off a handful of business names, and we went with Network Medics, and we launched from my basement in Apple Valley.
So this was 2008, you said?
2008, yeah, April of 2008.
Oh, okay. See, I didn't know that.
It's a while ago.
Yeah, it was. And so yeah, and so we just came in and so we're going to do IT support for small companies, and we did something that I would, at this point in my career, never recommend somebody do, but we just took the competitor's price and we reduced it by $5 an hour.
Right.
And we went to market. So in economic hardship, we went out, we're like, well, we're a little bit cheaper. So we were able to bring in a number of clients that way. And,
That probably actually was good back in the day.
Right.
In 2008, it was like, you need to save every dime.
Yeah.
We're all doing the same thing.
At that specific moment in time, that worked. And so we kind of got off the ground and just worked really hard, and we made like 60 grand in the first year. And we were like, oh, maybe this is not gonna work. But even with that, our CPA said, well, it's not a lot of revenue, but it is a high portion of profit, since you guys don't really have expenses. So you're going to have to spend some money because you're going to have a tax liability if you don't. So Patrick got on the Dell.com website and built the biggest server he could think of to build, it's hilarious because looking back at it now, what we bought at that point in time was kind of kid stuff, but we thought it was amazing. This huge server was the most powerful thing. It had all the processors and RAM and everything. Yep. And we put all of our stuff on there, and I remember sitting in the basement at 9 o'clock at night, and Patrick's like, "We're not going to be able to use this whole thing. I don't know why we spent this much money."
We'll never fill this.
It's so huge.
It's too big.
Yeah.
I said, but we could sell some of the stuff to our customers. And so, this back in 2008, well before the Amazon Web Services and those kinds of things were available, we started hosting small business server for small clients, and people
like backup storage, or
no, like it would run their file storage, file permissions, user accounts, and email all in one solution. We were selling it for $300 a month, which we thought was like stupidly expensive and nobody would ever pay for it, and people were like falling over to sign up for the service because there wasn't really
much Google Cloud or
those things didn't really exist fully at that point in time, and there were other providers that would give you one of those solutions. So they would give you like email, and it would be $20 per user per month, and so we were saying you could have up to 50 users for
300,
and people loved it. So so we started focusing on that and selling that, and people loved it. And we got to the point where we had, I don't know, probably $15,000 a month in revenue coming in from just from the hosting.
Okay, now we're talking.
This is a real thing.
Yep. You bought a big enough server to be able to do it.
We should not have our big server in the basement of a house in Apple Valley with all these clients on it. So we went and got our first office, our first server closet, and we said we shouldn't have only one server. We should probably have more than one server. And since we're making some money off of this, we bought some more. And then went to my parents and I was like, is there a way you guys could help? And they said, we'll give you a loan. It's going to be a 12-month term, and pay us back and just tell us what you're going to use it for. And we said, we need to buy a bunch more servers. So we did that, and we just kept going from there. Along the way, we were able to leverage some previous relationships and that kind of stuff, and brought in a big rush of customers kind of in the middle of the second year, and which to the point where we're sitting there, we needed 30 hours a day each to get the work done, and so we had to start hiring people. And I think one of the interesting things along the way was that there's this concept of managed services, which is IT services where it's a monthly fee, kind of a fixed fee. It's very common, probably the most common model now. Back then, it was sort of 50-50 between managed services and hourly IT services.
Okay.
And we were all going to market saying, and again, I would never give this advice to anybody at this point in time, but at that point in time, we were going to market saying, we're not managed services, we're hourly, we're only going to bill you for what you use. So we're a much better approach to IT, and we were able to bring on clients with that message and the lower pricing at that specific. This is in 2009 now, so at that point in history. But then we had the first year of $60,000. We had the second year of $360,000.
Okay.
And then in the third year, I remember in this first office, and it was actually almost exactly like this. We had one big table, all three of us sat around it, and that's all we had.
You're one employee.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you
we-
two.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then I mean, we hired an assistant first to take care of a lot of administrative stuff. Then we needed a technician very quickly, and then we were actually having great success with sales, and so we actually had to bring in another technician very quickly after that. And
How are you doing your sales, just out of curiosity?
just hitting the pavement, calling people that we knew, and asking for referrals and making phone calls.
Yep.
Just doing the grind. So, and Patrick and Kevin were the ones that were kind of leading the charge there, and I was back in the office trying to make sure that checks were getting cut and the ceiling's not falling. And so it was a really fun, really intense time. And I remember sitting there and working in QuickBooks and hitting refresh and watching the profit and loss go from 6 to 7 figures. And I was like, whoa, we did something here.
Yeah.
But then coming into that next year, we started to realize that the reason that a lot of IT companies have moved to the managed services model of sort of a fixed monthly fee and sort of all-inclusive services and that kind of stuff is because managing thousands of users and their requests coming in all the time and then billing for all that time is
And managed
incredibly
all of the time. And
Very tedious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And plus, it doesn't, if you're just doing a managed service fee, you could be super creative about how you approach it.
Right.
Your automation is your profit.
Right.
Right? They're
Right.
still getting the same thing for that.
right.
But the better you do it and the quicker you do it, the more money
Exactly.
you make. Yeah.
And that's a perfect lead into sort of the next thought that I have is
Yeah.
it was that we then we put together a managed services package, and then we've then flipped the message. So the message went not from, oh well, we're more ethical because we're only going to bill you for the amount of time you actually use. We flipped the message to say the onus is on us to perform, because we don't get any additional compensation for additional work. So it's our responsibility to make sure that everything is working all the time, because I don't make money. Every time I roll a truck, I lose money. So I need to make sure that everything is working as consistently and as effectively as possible. That's on me. You're paying me to do the job, and we have the responsibility for it. So we flipped the
and
message.
from a business owner's perspective, they just want to know what the cost is going to be.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And if that's fixed and it works and they just budget for that, that's great.
Yeah.
As long as everything gets done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. We set it up so really we had one offering, we had one package, because a lot of companies will do this for the bronze, silver, gold. They're trying to drive you into silver and whatever. And we said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do platinum. That's it.
Yeah.
And if the price is outside of the range that you're comfortable with, then we appreciate your time. But
This is what we do.
This is what we do. We do one thing and we do it really well.
Yep.
We're gonna modify our contracts based off of quantities and some unique configurations, but we're not gonna use a different type of antivirus or a different type of firewall or a different type of backup because you, Mr. or Mrs. Business Owner, like it. It's like you're hiring us because we're the technical experts, and so we do this every day. These are the solutions that we believe are the right ones, and these are the ones that we're going to use.
I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated that you did that back in the day and figured that out. Super impressive. But now it's 2024,
Yeah.
right? Like, how in the world did you continue to parlay this business to keep up? Because it's not like you were selling pickles, right? And the pickles don't change. You just figure out different packaging. You actually had to transform each year for a brand new tech stack, a brand new need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the way that we did that was we spent a lot of time out in the world at conferences, working with our distributors, working with our vendors, and staying on top of all that kind of stuff. And it was, a lot of work. We spent a lot of time traveling, a lot of time building relationships with those vendors to make sure that we knew what was coming and what was to be expected in the coming year. So,
Is the company still around?
well, sort of.
Okay.
So we'll kind of fast forward through some of those tedious details. We ended up selling the company in 2018. Along the way, we had always noted that.
Did you pay your parents back?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
They,
Just
they got,
making
they
sure.
got paid back on time.
Good for you.
And what was the name of the company?
It was Network Medics.
Network
Yeah,
Medics. Yep.
yeah. Patrick's parents also made a kind of a loan to us at some point along the way. We paid them back as well. We were very, strict about that. And one of the things I'm proud of personally is that we never missed a paycheck. Our staff always got paid.
Yep.
We always made sure that we held those obligations. Sometimes our vendors and distributors would get stretched a little bit, but our staff, they were always paid on time. Everything, benefits and everything was always in place for them. But we had the discussions internally about, well, what are we doing with this? Is this something that we're going to sell? Is this something that we're going to keep forever? And I think we all had the understanding that the way that we would really receive the value for the work was to sell the company at some point down the road. But we were thinking kind of not now, like 2024, 2025 kind of time frame was what the horizon that we had set for.
That was your intent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we got approached. We were getting approached. I was getting calls weekly from.
Well, as soon as you put it out there, as soon as you think about it, right?
Yeah.
Oh, then
Somebody's
someone
like,
comes along.
ooh,
Start manifesting
that looks
it.
like a profitable business. Yeah.
So we had multiple different people contact us. I had multiple different conversations with folks. I remember one in particular of someone I won't name, but I remember sitting through a conversation, having thinking in my head, this is not going to work out. But I appreciate that this guy is not making an insulting lowball offer.
Right.
And then the next words out of his mouth, I was like, "I'll give you $400,000 for your company." We had $2.5 million in revenue at the time. It's like,
This isn't working out, and you did make an
it?
insulting lowball offer.
But eventually, we had a buyer come along that was serious and was funded and did make a fair offer. And we at the time we weren't seeking to sell the company. We weren't represented. We didn't have any of that kind of stuff. But we had started doing the groundwork. So we had started making sure that we had good financials and all the records were in order and all that kind of stuff. So one of the things that was a big part of my job was to make sure that all that stuff was lined up in an order. So when we did have a serious buyer come along, we were able to act on that.
So they were, in essence, they're buying the accounts and what you've got, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Were you servicing the needs of small businesses at that point, or had you gotten any larger clients?
It was small businesses. The average account size we had was 27 users. The biggest account we had, I think, was 150. We were trying to sell more into those multiple hundred user accounts, but most of them were, 30-ish employees. It was kind of the size that we served.
Yep.
At the time we sold, we had 60 accounts. It was.
And what was the initial intent of the company was to be an IT services.
Yeah.
But you ended up, when you sold, were you selling the server
Yeah.
side of it, not the IT
So
services side?
it was probably about 40% of the revenue was coming from hosting. So we were hosting backup, hosting email, hosting file storage, that kind of stuff. We weren't doing websites or web applications or any of that kind of thing. Just because there were other competitors that would offer it at a better price.
Sure.
But for people who had custom software or they just wanted to have their stuff hosted with somebody they knew, and that was a big concern. It's like, do I really want all my data with Microsoft or with Amazon? They could keep it with us and felt better about it.
Right.
But at the time we sold it, it was about 40% of the revenue was from the hosting.
Okay.
So
It just feels like the world, like everyone hosts in Microsoft or
well, that was
AWS.
I think
AWS. Yeah.
that was part of our impetus in sort of making the decision to sell the company. Was a significant amount of the revenue for the company is coming from services of which we have lost the fight.
Yeah.
Like we're not going to beat Microsoft Azure. We're not going to beat Amazon Web Services. And earlier in the life of the company, we could compete because we could offer lower prices, and those services were priced at very premium rates when they first came out.
Yeah.
But as they expanded, the price
came down. Yeah.
Price came down substantially, and we couldn't compete with the price.
Yeah, that's what I would have thought.
And so we started having major accounts say, okay, well, we want to look at switching to these other services. We want our packages, our products and services and things to be distributed around the world and not just in Minneapolis and that kind of thing. So we were already losing the hosting battle at the time we got approached by this buyer. The buyer makes a fair offer. And I remember going and talking to, all my mentors and advisors and everybody and sort of one by one them going,
Sell,
sign it,
sell,
sign it,
sell,
sign it.
sell.
Like, and so
That's what I'm thinking in my head.
yeah. So we had to have the internal conversation of does this make sense? The calculus is it's going to take 3 to 5 years to get to a significantly higher valuation of this company, and we sold it for less than we had originally envisioned. But at the same time, this is a real offer.
Yeah.
And so we went through it and we're like, are we going to make it through the next 3 to 5 years? Are we going to continue to grow? And that's the thing, is that we would need to show 5 years of continuous growth for us to get a substantially better valuation.
Yeah.
So, do you take it now, bird in hand, or do we risk the next 5 years? And ultimately we decided, we built it, we did the work, and it's a good enough company that somebody else wants to buy it. Let's sell.
In 2018, it sounds like the timing of that might have been fortuitous.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm just,
Exactly. Very exactly.
Yeah.
Now what?
Yeah. So,
I'm like deep into the story.
I know. Yeah.
well, I was the lucky one that got to stick around to do the integration.
Okay.
So both Patrick and Kevin, they went off and did other things after a short kind of consulting agreement with the buyer, and I got to sit in the same office that I had had for the past several years and watch this much larger company dismantle and reassemble everything that we had done.
Wow.
It's absolutely brutal. So I mean, you go through the stages of mourning when you sell a company. I got to go through those, kind of on closing day, and then continuously over the next year as I
was going to say a year, a full
Yeah,
year.
yeah.
Watch it get dissected.
Yeah.
Yep, and changing everything from the way that we had done it, and having very little power to do anything about it. And then we had an earnout, and so my job was to deliver this earnout to myself and my business partners. So in addition to just the day-to-day operations of this office, I had to make sure that work was in place and that we retained the customers and all that kind of stuff. And so we finally got to the point where there weren't enough accounts up for renewal that we could miss our number, and it was a huge relief.
Right.
And so at the end of that, I went to the CEO of this company and I said, look, I don't want to be the general manager of my own company anymore. I'd be happy to help this organization with its M&A efforts, with integration and those kinds of things as we move forward. But I don't want to be sales manager. I don't want to be general manager of my own company. Like that's just,
I'm done.
I'm done.
Yeah.
It's not my company
Yeah,
anymore.
and he said, I don't really see a role like that for you in this company. And I said, okay, well,
That's fine. That works.
I will be done before Christmas. So
Yeah.
thank you. And so then I took a little sabbatical.
Good for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was supposed to fly to Tokyo. A friend of mine is kind of a points maven. She tracks all this kind of stuff. And so she said, you can get to Tokyo for 50,000 sky miles. And so I jumped on that right away. And my flight to Tokyo was April 2nd, 2020.
You probably didn't make that flight.
So
That probably didn't go so well.
No.
Yeah.
No, my direct flight to Tokyo from Minneapolis was Minneapolis to Seattle to Tokyo, to Minneapolis to Detroit to Seattle to Tokyo, to Minneapolis to Atlanta to Detroit to Seattle to Tokyo.
Right.
And then I had a friend of mine, I lamented about this on Facebook, and a friend of mine who lives in Tokyo said, don't come here.
Yeah.
You'll be confined to your hotel room. There are no restaurants open. There's no activity. None of the sites. Not like you will literally be quarantined in your hotel room if you come here.
Yeah.
You could do that at home in your own bed.
Right. A lot more comfortable.
Let's use that sabbatical and trip to Tokyo as a way to segue into a break here in the middle.
Yeah,
We'll
let's
come
do
back
it.
for the second.
Let's
Sure.
have a
Yeah.
let's do that.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have some port, and we're gonna dig into now what.
Yeah. Now we're gonna get
Yeah.
Now that the story's out there, we're gonna get into the rest of it.
Right.
So
Sounds
All right,
good.
cool.
All right.
Here we go.
thanks.